One of the perks of my job is I get to travel to exotic places and talk to interesting people. So here I am sitting on an airstrip in Istanbul, talking to Deepika Padukone and Saif Ali Khan about Cocktail.
And thank you very much for coming all the way.
From the promos, it looks like this is a Bollywood take on Archie's comics. You're also called Veronica. Is it, isn't it?
I think Veronica's name would presumably come from the familiarity of an Archie comic somewhere, where the kind of role she's playing is a very layered role, but it's also primarily someone who is rich and glamorous and well off, and also slightly emotionally off the deep end as well.
But you said in an interview that she's a very dark character, and you said I almost can't identify with her. Is that what makes her dark? That, you know, he said she's a little off the deep end emotionally?
Yeah, I guess, that's the emotional... she's not very expressive with her emotions, especially when she's feeling low, or she's, you know, when she has to deal with a lot. She's not someone who'll show it to the world, but she's someone who'll completely break down when she's alone. So I guess that's the dark side, and the fact that she craves normalcy, but she's never really experienced it.
This whole thing about love and friendship, you know, Hindi movies have been grappling with it since Andaz in 1949. So what is Cocktail adding to the conversation?
I think there's certain themes that, like you said, don't change. And if you look at the best of movies, or the most honest of movies that reflect a human condition, the themes, I mean, if indeed there is a theme, which we're happy that we do have a theme, are familiar. And the themes of our movie are also friendship, loyalty, love. But this is a film about three friends, and the reason it's called Cocktail is the emotional mix is a volatile one sometimes, you know, and
also of three completely different personalities
that go to making it different. So when you say what does it add fresh, or what's new about the theme of friendship, I think definitions of what defines a friendship doesn't really change ever in terms of being loyal to a friend, but the setting obviously changes, and the socializing changes, and the kind of scenario and the things that friends do. So I won't say it's, you know, new wine in an old wine in a new bottle, but...
So you were saying you were a little bit concerned when the script came?
In the sense that when Homie was to direct a commercial movie, a Hindi commercial film, because, I mean, he would often yell at me when we were doing our film Being Cyrus, and, you know, I hope he's watching this.
That was too commercial?
No, he'd say things like, oh, stop standing there like some Bollywood hero and, you know, act in this way. So a lot of India has, I mean, we're a complicated and beautifully layered nation of, you know, one cocking a snoot at the other for being, you know, this religion or into that food or into, you know, so everyone's feeling superior or inferior in some way or the other. So Homie decided to take a stand where, you know, he thought that Bollywood movies are not the greatest.
Star.
Yeah. So here he is directing a Bollywood movie.
We keep making fun of him that this is his comeback film because like 10 people watched Being Cyrus. And so he finally succumbed to making commercial movies.
But Saif, tell me, what is the challenge for you? You know, this urbane player, this lovable rake. We've seen you do it in other films. So what really sort of makes it interesting for you?
Well, again, I think it's the writing of Imtiaz Ali, whose dialogues, and his brother Sajid also deserves a lot of credit, who created a kind of very fresh way of talking. I, in fact, found his dialogues a little hard to learn because you get used to over the years of speaking the rhythm of normal Hindi film dialogues, where, you know, at least I find it doesn't take that long to learn them because they're words you've said before. And then you come across a script like this where you haven't said it before and the timing's different, and it took me a while. So that was something fresh about it. And also, he had injected a Delhi flavor into it. And Homie was very sure about the way he directed that. In fact, he had me dub some of it, saying it's inconsistent. So the idea was it's a bit of a Delhi guy, you know. And that's different for me. Otherwise, normally the characters are slightly anglicized in their approach, and you're playing this kind of rom-com shot in New York or in London where, you know, you're playing this character that's all too familiar.
So when two actors work together so often, you've done 4 films together, do you have to work harder to create a freshness and to create a chemistry, or is it just easier because you figured out the shorthand?
No, I mean, figuring out the shorthand and that kind of comfort is something that's akin to a dangerous kind of familiarity in terms of, something getting close to predictability. So it's not like that. I think I don't actually feel, even though we have done a remarkable amount of work recently, that there's been much repetitive about it. The films have been different.
I just feel like because of the films that we've done being so different and the characters that we've played are so different that no, I don't feel that. I don't feel like I consciously have to do something different, or that I don't even think, and I really think that he's one of the best actors India's ever seen.
Did you know that?
No.
He's always very spontaneous, so he'll never give you the same thing again anyway.
Saif, you talk about liking darker roles, about liking Ek Hasina Thi or Omkara, but as a producer, romance seems to be your thing. I mean, 2 out of 3. Why is that?
Well, because I have a partner in film production, and I put people around me whose opinions I also respect, who know. Because given a choice, my sensibility would be to make what I'm told might not be the most. I think it's commercial, but I'd like to make maybe a spy thriller. I mean, if we were to translate it into Hollywood, I'd say I'd love to make a Mission Impossible. I'd like to make Sherlock Holmes. I'd like to make all these kind of movies. Whereas love stories, even though I enjoy doing them. I find them to be a little bit girly in terms of movie content. I mean, there's slightly chick flicky, which is wonderful, and it's great fun to act in. But I mean, I wouldn't really go out of my way to watch them. So there's a dichotomy. There's a mix. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, I'd rather watch.
It's really weird because
Yeah.
I think love stories suit
I mean,
him.
Right,
I
he's so
accept
good
that.
at it. It's so
I accept that,
effortless.
and I love it, and I respect it. I don't mean no disrespect to the genre, but like I say, I mean, I would never go and watch any of these movies, and say, hey, let's buy some popcorn and go and see this. I'd prefer to watch Agent Vinod, but I think I'm the only guy in the room. But I mean, we must stick to our convictions. So in answer to your question, how, is because they tell me, no, shut up, we're not listening to you anymore, let's make this because let's also please make some money. And you have to understand that the audience is quite different to you, and most of the time we're giving them what we think they'd like. And not to be too indulgent. Like I was saying to you a moment before this interview started, that I think a genuine producer make the best kind of movies because they make movies for movies' sake and for the audience in order to make money, which sounds terrible, but there's a clean emotion behind it. Whereas if you give a director enough scope, sometimes he might be a little indulgent in his choice of film because they can be a little artistic in their approach. Actors can also be indulgent. I mean, if you ask Deepika which is the film you'd most like to do, it might be because she wants to play that part. If you ask me, I'd also say, I want to play this role. Whereas a producer would say, no, I think all of you would
More
be better
objective.
off doing this. And that's where it comes in. So I don't know if I answered you. I'm going to make a resolution to start answering the question from this year, because I often don't. A lot of people don't, right? You ask them a
they
question,
don't.
they say, yesterday, and they just say something that's not related to what you asked. Do you come across that sometimes?
Yes.
Or am I the only one? I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, I have this point to make, but forget that. Let me talk about cricket. Yeah, no.
Saif, when you first started 20 years ago now, there was a real disconnect between your sensibility, very urbane,
Ji.
British, and the film industry was very much a sort of still half foot in the 80s, very masala. In fact, I remember doing an interview with you and you said to me, I didn't really get it, but before anybody found out, everything changed and I'm in fashion now.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me this. But Saif, it looks like things are changing again,
Right.
and the biggest hits are now Singham and
Yes.
Rowdy Rathore and Wanted, films which are kind of a throwback to that whole 1980s sensibility. So where do you fit into this?
I'm not sure in the sense that I think everyone has to find their strength. And as a producer and an actor, I am conscious also that there is a limitation to a multiplex movie. In order to make the film that you're talking about, you need the patronage and the wholehearted support of the single screen audience. And to make that film that connects both, it needn't be, you know, I mean, I think a lot of movie stars have something unique about their personalities, whether the films you mentioned, whether it's Ajay Devgan or Salman Khan or Akshay Kumar. So where that leaves me is to find that role, perhaps, where I could play to my strength, and at the same time do something that the common man would also find interesting to watch, rather than something that's a little too polished for his taste. That's the thing. And at the same time, I mean, we started doing these multiplex movies, I think, with Hum Tum. Aditya Chopra said that I want to make this new kind of movie. I remember when we talked about that. And so, I don't know, I think it'll be a cross between more of the same and looking for something, whether it's race. So for me, it is a bit of a search. It's a good question, because it's not something that immediately comes naturally to me to do. But I'm sure there's something that is wider, which would appeal to both centers, single screen as well as multiplex. I thought Agent Vinod would have been a good idea for that. But somehow I think in the execution we still ended up going a bit wrong. But the idea in my mind is to find what that is also. I don't know what it is yet.
Do these questions bother you, Deepika? Do you think about who is the audience? Do these things factor in when you pick a script?
To a very small extent, because I think eventually I will always end up choosing films that I'm naturally drawn to. Like I think Cocktail, for example, is a classic example. When I signed the film, today everybody's talking about how fresh the film is looking and compared to all the other films that one is seeing right now. But when we signed the film, or when I decided to do the film, I didn't plan that in 2 years from now, this is going to release on this date and these are the kind of films that are going to be releasing. Hence, Cocktail is going to look fresh and look different. It's what I went with at that point. Everything kind of just falls into place, and I think I also believe that everybody's career has a different graph. Everybody has different kinds of films that they're drawn to. So eventually, everything will fall into place.
It'll all work out in the end.
Hopefully.
You both grew up with sportsmen fathers. Is a sports star different from a film star?
Basic difference right there, in the sense that I mean, our parents are international stars, and I mean, at the moment we're not. And if Prakashji plays badminton, he plays on an international level where you're playing against the best players in the world. If my father's playing cricket, he's playing against the best cricketers in the world. So there's still an industry that I feel makes better movies than we do. You know, and so that's something we have to deal with, and hopefully tomorrow, you know, somebody will offer Deepika an amazing American film and she'll go and do that, and maybe we'll produce a film that will also run on a slightly wider scale than what we're doing now. And I think because of our parents, and I'm speaking for her, which I shouldn't be, that's our duty, is to kind of expand it and to take it to another level to what it is right now. But I think there's the difference, the international and the national.
Deepika, how did the sports shape you? You were a national level player yourself. Did it, and does it even today, sort of inform, perhaps not your acting, but just the way you deal with situations in life?
I think so. I think it's taught me a lot. To begin with, I think basic things like discipline, you know, how to handle failure and success, how to be competitive in the right spirit. You know, so I think a lot of this I've learned thanks to being Prakash Padukone's daughter, and the fact that I've also been an athlete. So I think I've learned a lot of early mornings. I can wake up early in the morning.
Can you?
No. Yes. But I think also, you know, there's if you play a sport and if you play with a team, that's something they instill in you when you're young. I mean, as part of a good upbringing, because there's a different kind of thinking involved. All too often you hear stories about movie stars, and competing on a level of insecurity, really, where, this afternoon Anil Kapoor was telling me a story about Marilyn Monroe having a tantrum with Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, this is a nice story, but at the base of it is fierce kind of insecurity, and those are the stories that you associate with movie stars rather than with sportsmen, which I'm sure they must have had their insecurities and problems as well, but generally it was more of a team atmosphere where other people's success was also important to what you're doing. Whereas it can be that in films, but all too often it is
It isn't.
an individual quest for glory somehow, but sure, I mean, it's got its ups as well.
You said, Saif, in an interview that you want to be a warrior monk.
I thought that's eventually the way one
What does
ends
that mean,
up.
first of all?
I mean, that means that you approach life with aggression and with I mean, you're spiritual about things. I mean, you're kind, you pray, you're appreciative, you're in touch with nature, you know what's going on around you. But at the same time, you're not passive and you don't let things go. You are aggressive. You want to win. You want to do well. So there is an aggression in your nature, but it's a kind aggression where you're not hopefully doing wrong things or getting your way in an incorrect fashion. So you're spiritually correct, but at the same time, so the image of some kind of Templar knight comes to mind, where you're in the name of the Lord, victory. Courage and a quick victory. That's actually our family motto.
Really?
Yeah.
Courage and the quick victory.
Courage and a quick victory, yeah. But with the help of God, a quick victory. I mean, there's a war in there somewhere.
Right. Does warrior monk sound good to you, Deepika? What do you aspire
In
to
the
be?
way he's explained it, absolutely.
Yeah, it does sound good, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
To be aggressive, to want to be the best, to want to be up there, to be appreciated by everyone, to have the best films, to want to achieve everything, but at the same time,
Not at the cost of your soul.
yeah. Thank you.
But is that possible, given the environment you both function in?
It's not the most common thing in our profession, perhaps. That there's no reason why it shouldn't be possible. And maybe if you did it, then you'd find that people around you are quite, happy, and you're happy. I don't know. I've often felt in the past. Sometimes, if you're a little, it's very easy to, be like jealousy comes to the front quite easily sometimes. But it doesn't work. I found out very early, because I don't think, can benefit from anyone else's failure. I mean, tomorrow, if lightning bolts start striking people down left and right, which nobody wants, it really doesn't help you. The only thing that can help you is you. And I genuinely believe that. Maybe we can strike down a few people with lightning also.
That's right. I'm good with a few people
Yeah,
just
a few
collapsing.
people, not everybody. The selective monk. Okay, whatever.
The selective warrior monk.
Oh no, I said it. Sorry.
Finally, Saif, is marriage on the cards this year?
Yes, I hope and think so, yes. I mean, for sure.
Is there a date?
Yeah, there is a date in October, but I would like to discuss it with a few parts of Karina and my family before I say it on television.
Before you declare it?
Yeah. But yes, definitely in October. And so I'm quite excited about that as well.
Are you nervous?
I mean, I'm not nervous yet, maybe, naturally. So I think when people should be a little nervous about momentous occasions in their life, that shows that they're taking them seriously. But no, I'm not nervous. I feel I know what I'm doing, and I'm quite looking forward to it, actually.
Congratulations and all best
Okay.
for Cocktail.
Thank you.